So Zara, I wanted to talk to you about depression and how people can heal themselves if they're using the law of attraction or interested, and also just why depression exists.
Depression is basically what Abraham calls, and I've learned from them to call it sloppy thinking. It's giving in to negative momentum rather than doing the work, because it is work, to stop that negative momentum. It's like if a train was if there was a bullet train going on a track, you wouldn't go and stand on those tracks unless you really wanted to commit suicide, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that train is that train of depression, and bringing it to a stop really does feel like getting in front of that train. You feel like a train wreck if you want to stop that momentum, because it takes so much work.
Yeah. But there are some people are depressed because of things that have happened to them in their lives.
Yes, but that's only because they gave in to the negative momentum rather than choosing thoughts of positive momentum. It's that six thinking choices paradigm that I always talk about. When something bad happens, and believe
Yes.
me, this question is at the core of all the work that I've done, is the question, why me? And that question is what creates depression. Because if you keep asking the question, why me? You basically cannot get a satisfactory answer. Because what it boils down to is, okay, that person is to blame, that event is to blame, and in the end, I must not be worthy, and that's why it happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Which
And
is not
so,
the case.
which is never the case. So, it's 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 that defeat that gets people, and then they just give up the inclination to think otherwise, because they can't find reasons for it,
Right.
right? And but if you do, because our minds, so first of all, I want to say something. It is people who are extremely intelligent, whose brain goes in what do you want to call it,
Overdrive?
overdrive. Brain goes in overdrive. Those are the people who are more, um, what's the word again?
Susceptible?
There you go, you're finding all my words today. They are more susceptible to depression because their mind is not able to accept the evidence that it sees. And so it keeps wanting to find the evidence in order to come to a conclusion. It never can find that evidence. And so it just, it just stays there in that negative space because it's looking for evidence to allow it to go up. And that's where it takes work for the person to say, who's in control here, my mind or me? And would you believe it? You and your mind are two separate things. You are not your mind,
Right.
right? And the reason you are not your mind is because there's a soul part of you.
Where does the soul part reside?
The soul part is the non physical part of you. It does not reside in your physical body, even though we say it resides in our heart. Okay? So, there's this mind part of us, and then there's this soul part of us
Above the head.
above the head, which really what we call our heart.
Yeah.
Okay? And the thing is, and this is what the course Heart and Mind Alignment is all based upon, is that the heart, which is here, thinks everything is possible. The mind shoots it down. So even before you can get started towards a goal or a dream that you've decided you would like, it comes to a stop
Right.
because because the mind can't see all the options. So the mind shuts down and tells us we can't get it. Because the mind is based on the mind operates on information that we gather from our environment using our five senses. And then we use that information in order to come to conclusions. That's logic, right?
Not intuition.
No, intuition is, so if you're over here, you can see a whole different, the view from here, from the top of your head, right?
Yes.
Or non-physical. The view from non-physical is the bird's eye view. It can see all options and everything. The view from here, it's the difference between the forest and the trees. The mind only sees the trees in front of it and can't see a way through that forest to the other end. But the non-physical part has the bird's eye view from here and can see all the paths that are going through that forest. So the heart says, come this way, let me show you. There's a way through here. And the mind looks at that and says, no, that's going into a ravine. There might be ugly monsters in that ravine. I'm not going to go until you show me evidence that there's no monster that's going to grab me. Right? So, because we learn through school, we are taught to rely more on our minds, our logic. Everyone says, okay, what's the reason for this? What's the logical reason? How can you explain this to me? And if you went to your teacher and you said, my gut feel tells me, you'd end up in the principal's office. Right? It's not an acceptable answer. And so what happens is we slowly start depending more on our minds, and we start ignoring that voice inside that comes from the non-physical, that is what we call our intuition or our gut feel. We start ignoring that voice in favor of what the mind says. But the mind can go spinning round and round in circles because it's looking for evidence, and sometimes it cannot see the evidence because it does not have the bird's eye view. Right? There's a little story that I tell, and it's a fun story. So imagine that somebody told you, Teresa, that there was this dangerous forest with lots of creatures lurking in it, but if you could get through this forest without a map, then on the other side is a pot of gold.
Yeah.
Right? And so the challenge is, do you want this challenge? And you say, I sure do want that pot of gold. So yes, sign me up. I'm going to go through this forest. And then you have this brilliant idea and you call a friend, maybe that's me, and you say, could you rent a helicopter and grab a walkie-talkie? And why don't you go on top and just keep telling me through the walkie-talkie where to go, because I can't see my way through this forest. And so I sign up for the job, right? Well, that's basically what our inner being, what God is, or what the universe is, because the universe is that friend in the helicopter with the walkie-talkie telling you where to go. But your mind doesn't let you go. Your mind says, wait a second, what if that friend is lying? I don't see any evidence. I don't see the path.
Yeah.
So the mind shuts you down. And now you're scared of moving forward.
Right.
And that's what happens to a lot of people. That is what results in depression. I can't resolve this. So it's
So they ruminate and they go round and round
That's
and round in all or nothing thinking or downward spirals, and they just continue in that spiral.
emotional overload.
Yeah.
You generate a lot of momentum. So we did the segment on momentum and what momentum is. Basically, the more you think a certain thought, you generate acceleration towards a negative outcome if it's negative thinking, and a positive outcome if you're thinking positively. So people who go into depression are generating a lot of negative momentum. And that's why when when you're generating so much negative momentum, sometimes it's very difficult for this person to be the one to bring that train to a stop. That train, that momentum that's going so fast. And that's why it is a good idea to reach out for help. Whether you're talking to a priest, or you're talking to a coach, or you're talking to a friend, or you're going to therapy, whatever it is, because it you need someone to help you bring that train to a stop.
Yes, agreed.
Right?
And that's why sometimes seeing a counselor or a psychotherapist
Yes.
or a coach is a good idea,
Is a
because you
good
need to
idea.
recognize the thought patterns.
Yes, and they can show you strategies that help you to resolve some of the questions that you have
Right.
and stop that negative momentum from building any further.
Right.
Right? And now, once that stops, only then can you see more clearly.
Mm-hmm. Good idea. So, to wrap up, I would say that for people who are suffering from depression, it's to perhaps have faith that this can be a temporary situation.
Absolutely, it can be. The only reason it gets extended into a longer term thing is because you don't find the right type of help. See, it's not just about resolving the current momentum or the current situation, it's also about learning strategies to be able to deal with situations on your own so that you don't go in that direction again. Remember, I said thought addiction.
Yes.
So it needs to be treated like any other addiction. And the you know how if you are addicted to a substance, we can take the substance away for a couple of days and then you're clean and now you can think straight. But it's way harder because nobody can get into your head, right?
Yeah, and take it out.
And there's no therapist who's going to stay with you 24 hours.
Talking to you
And making sure that your responses are the right responses towards what's happening around you.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to use strategies, and a support network who understands that is very important as well. And the most important thing out of all of this is your own commitment to yourself.
Right.
Because I can tell you from someone who has been in depression, which seems like ancient history to me now, but you can come out of it on your own. You just have to have that sort of commitment to yourself. And then you can do it.
I went through the same thing for a lot of my life. I was like, I couldn't understand what it was like to be in a depression. And then realized once I was in it, what it was, and then how you can get out of it.
Yes, and that's the thing. You can. It takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of commitment to yourself. And I remember many years ago having this one thought one day that said, oh, I'm improving at dealing with my depression because now I don't go there and stay for a whole year. I think I can come out in 6 months now. So
it was just knowing that you can get out of it. I think that's the most powerful thing, that you can bring yourself out of it. Start small.
Absolutely, you
start
can.
appreciating.
Yes.
It's about appreciating things around you.
Now, I want to bring this to a close by saying, when you're in depression, don't look for other people who share that with you. Don't go into a group of depressed people, because that's not going to help you get over it.
Absolutely.
I know from having experienced it that when you're depressed, you don't want to be near a cheerful person. Really, you want to smack them because they're so cheerful.
I agree. I was in group counseling once, and I found I actually got more depressed after listening to all
That's
of that.
right. So there has to be a balance. You can't be with these cheerful people because you can't stand them. And it seems like a good idea to be with other people who understand how you're feeling, but when you are with people who who give you the impression that they understand how you're feeling, they actually magnify that depression. They don't help you get over it. Because
I totally agree. So we need a balance between the two.
That's right. You need a balance between the two. And for the most part, and I did this, and I can share this strategy for anyone who's out there who needs a something that you can do on your own to help yourself, is to either grab audiobooks or Netflix or something that you can get so involved in that you forget to think about your own life.
Love it.
And
Comedy.
comedy, it's comedy. What I did was audiobooks.
Yes, me too.
I did audiobooks. I borrowed a 30-day supply of audiobooks, and I nonstop I listened to those audiobooks. And I didn't know that I was doing it. I was driving, and suddenly a thought came into my head: stop at the library. So I stopped at the library. I had no idea why. I just followed that gut feel. I went in, and I went to the self-help section, and I came out with 2 big bags full of audio books, all self-help, all law of attraction type material. And then, because I had nothing better to do, I listened to those. And when I finished listening to those, by that time, 30 days, I could already see that my life was getting better. I didn't know it had to do with the audiobooks. I figured that out later on, that it was because they enabled me to take my mind off my usual thoughts. Remember thought addiction?
Yes, exactly.
So because now the substance was taken away. See?
You weren't thinking, you wouldn't wake up and think of that.
That's right.
What you're going to do.
I would wake up thinking, okay, I want to really listen to that next chapter of the book that I was listening to last night.
Right.
So what happened is I broke that addiction to my own way of thinking. And when I broke that addiction, I started feeling better. And when I started feeling better, I started making better decisions about my life. And then, of course, because I was making better decisions, life started getting better. Didn't take long. 30 days. That's all you need to do.
Positive momentum, right?
That's right. I generated positive momentum without knowing what I was doing, but now I can recommend this as a really good strategy. Not only will you learn something, you'll improve your life. I mean, come on.
Love it. Love it. Okay, I know we talked about momentum in our last episode, but I thought what I'd like to do is have some tools of how people get themselves into positive momentum. So I'll probably add that to even this episode, because you want to think about, and you mentioned it, it's like you listen to audiobooks, find things that make you happy. Find things that change your mood and take your mind off of it, change your state.
When you start understanding that it is your thought addiction that is the problem, then you also start understanding that all you need to do is take that addiction away from yourself, right?
It's that simple.
It's really intellectually, it's that simple. So whatever that is, paint, dance, listen to music, go out, have fun. Just don't start thinking about your own life, and every time your thoughts go there, because they will, because that's an addiction, right? Every time your thoughts go there, stop and tell yourself, not doing that. I know better now. Not going to do that. Right? So I'm just going to leave one little tip. Meditation is not a good tool for people who are in depression. Because people who are in depression, when they go into meditation, they take those addictive thoughts with them in the meditation, and that just makes it worse. It does not help it.
What about a guided meditation? That's something different. Is that different?
The key to meditation is you need to not take your life into meditation. You need to not take your thoughts in there. And until you are able to break the negative momentum, you will take your thoughts because they're on autopilot, and you think you're meditating, but because your thoughts are on autopilot, they can sneak in.
Okay.
So I don't recommend meditation as a process for those people who are in depression, because people with anxiety and depression, their thoughts are that bullet train.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So if you stop controlling the steering of that bullet train, it's going to go off the track and you will not have control. So just don't give that control to anyone.
Okay.
Okay? And in meditation, what happens is you lose that control.
Yes. Okay, so don't do meditation. Good.
No.
Thank you.
Okay? All right.
I'll make some of those notes for sure for our listeners, and thank you.
You're welcome. Nice chatting with you. See you next time.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.